a playlist original.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Back to the Blockbuster with the hosts Gaius and Jackson. Jackson is not on today because he is at work because this is a very off time for the podcast to be recording. But
I just
in case you're wondering,
so glad I was
expected
expected to be Jackson. I was not prepared for
that.
that.
No, you're like,
and I was like, I can't fake that. Okay, good. Sorry, go on.
You know, it's like habit not to change the intro because he's like a part of the show. So I mean,
of course.
So, and then some listeners get worried when he's like not on. Like if he, they're like, "Did you get a new co-host?" And like, no. Like if that ever happened, we would let you know. And
it's my habit to make shit jokes. So, but if you've heard me on this podcast before, you know that. Again, sorry, go on.
Oh, no. You probably recognize this guy's voice too. But Jackson will be on to talk news with us. We're recording tomorrow, and we're also doing an anniversary episode for the Breakfast Club, which is your listener's pick for the month of February. So fear not, he will be back soon. But in lieu of having Jackson, we have a familiar voice, however you want to put it, to the podcast. He was on The Guest. We did a deep dive of that, and that was a very fun conversation. And then soon after that, he did Wes Craven's New Nightmare with us for its anniversary. We wanted to do something else before the end of the year, but between the holiday and I got busy, and there was a lot going on at the end of the year, so we couldn't make it happen. But welcome back, Paul, from the Review podcast. Thank you for joining me today.
My goodness, I much appreciate it. We were going to do The Insider, which I rewatched, and it was just like a pleasure. What a movie. If we have a chance to talk about it at some point, I would not be upset. But I'm a co-host on the Review. I'm an actor with HTA. I'm an unrepresented but award-winning writer. I'm trying to be better at this. This is my attempt. So there's that. But it's like, it's so nice to be back. And as you said, even though I was very jealous, enjoyed the episode, but I love me a Rutger Hauer movie. And boy, I'm so glad everybody loved The Hitcher. That was nice to hear. But here we go. Sorry.
No, you're good, man. Like intro yourself as I love how you said working on how to that was a good intro. You got the podcast in. You got like a little bit about yourself in.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the episode, you can explain a little bit more about what your podcast is and what you have coming up.
Okay.
And speaking of The Hitcher, that was one day you'll be on with Jackson. That was Jackson's pick when he was super busy with school when we were doing Tales of Horror. We did The Hitcher, and it was fun. Jackson picked some good movies. Like we did In the Mouth of Madness for its anniversry. That was another Jackson
Carpenter.
Pick. Yeah. So Jackson knows what's up, despite being younger than
these kids. I don't have a lot of hope, so I'm glad you're pumping them up. This is good.
Yeah,
all right,
I know. Excited. Despite being younger than most of us, he has a lot of good insight.
Jacked about it.
Jacked. Yeah, there you go. So for this one, we are deep diving and also another anniversary. And I was looking at. I'm glad you picked it because I was looking when we were talking about doing this. I was like, are there any like retrospectives on this movie? Have anyone talked about it? In any of its little milestone anniversaries since it's come out? And I couldn't find a lot. It was decently reviewed back in the day when it came out. The people I know who have seen it do really like it. And then there are also people in the room, and when you bring it up, they've never heard of it. And then when you say who's in it, they're surprised by like the names that are in it, and then even more surprised that they haven't heard of it. Because I mean, this was like a kind of the era of like a lot of these guys in this movie were kind of breaking out. And I'm surprised that it isn't more well known. Surprised that it didn't do all that well when it came out, in 2000. But since you did pick it, Paul, for us to do, why don't you introduce what little movie we're going to talk about, which also turned 25 on February 18th.
Yeah, which is wild to think, right? That's just the really hard thing for me to come to grips with, is that it's 25. But the Ben Younger written and directed film Boiler Room from 2000, starring, let's just go through the starting, like a baseball, like 9. Like that cast is.
Yeah, I was like, where do you stop reading the cast list where it's like, because it goes pretty deep.
Yeah, because I mean, depending on who you're speaking to, it's like you can speak to like Ron Rifkin or whatever. Like that's a good actor. Like that's a known actor depending on whom you're speaking to. So like it's just the cast goes super deep depending on how nerdy you want to get.
Yeah. So yes, a very stacked ensemble cast, and and at a really, like we said, crucial time for a lot of them. Oddly enough, one of the people in this movie, Vin Diesel, this came out the very same weekend that Pitch Black came out, and
really,
and I was just like, I forgot that at the time, like he, when he was emerging, I guess out of, Saving Private Ryan, and then I guess this stuff, he became like this kind of it thing for a bit. And this was around that time, and then he did the Fast and the Furious, and then kind of took off from there. And I know I don't want to go too far off naming the cast, but when I was watching this, I kept focusing in on him, and I was like, dude, he was really good at one point. I'm not, I don't appreciate like the kind of shtick that he has now as like Dominic Toretto and all that, because there's a lane for that in the audience for it, but like
lane.
Yeah, okay. There you go. He had some range back in the day, and like it seemed like he could have been on a very different trajectory as an actor had he maybe chose different films. But he's not gonna like that. The Fast and Furious franchise has made a ton of money for him, and I'm sure he's not looking at his life with regret. But
you make an interesting point though, because he's been playing Dom Toretto, which is a character that he's built. Like that is a fleshed out actor performance thing, but we've seen him do it for so long. You kind of, I think like you're kind of making a really great point that we forget. He did a movie called like Strays or something, did a couple independent movies, and Spielberg was like, "You're great," and Brad Bird was like, "You're great," and we're casting
the Iron Giant.
He's great in both of those movies. He's really solid as Groot, like a character that says a word or two. But as you're making a really good point, he's really fantastic in this movie. It's just crammed with a bunch of really great performances. But what the perplexing thing for me is like the Ben Younger thing, where it's like this was this guy's film and TV directing debut, and it's fucking strong, personal opinion. And then he's got a couple credits after that, and that's
and then God, I was like,
he directs TV.
Yeah, that's true. I don't want to take that away from TV. Is very essential.
I think when I was like the Vince Staples show, he directed some of that, and it was really solid show.
Yeah, when I was looking at, I was like, dude, I wonder what this guy has done since. And I was like, oh, like it's so weird when certain people like, I'd say peak with certain movies, because it's like, it's his debut, and it's a really fairly strong one, at least from like a screenwriting standpoint. And like I was like, oh, he must have done a lot after this. And like you said, he's done some TV, but I was expecting more like film work, I guess, and not so much. And maybe this is so strong because it's even he wrote from personal experience. He actually did like a lot of this is based on like him, kind of going out for one of these jobs, and then from there he got to talk to several people, on the anonymously about their experience working in these kind of jobs, and he took a lot of what they said and actually verbatim some certain lines and things that he heard them say and threw it in the movie. And I have so many friends that work in so many different fields, but this is one that I don't know anyone personally has worked in ever, and that's why when I watch movies about this particular subject matter, it almost feels in a fun way, in addition to watching a good movie, a tutorial on a life and kind of way of life that I don't understand. Like I don't get it at all, and that's why I think I'm intrigued by it. Watching it, because I'm like, is this really how a lot of this stuff works? Is the energy this high? Is it really this kind of like go for broke kind of like profession? And like, even if it is exaggerated for a movie, there still has to be like a little bit of truth in that, where it's like, okay, this is kind of how this kind of stuff works, and I'm intrigued by it. I've of course watched Wall Street and Glengarry Ross, and they movies that they mentioned in this particular movie, and again, they're good movies, but I'm also still watching them as like, this is just interesting because I don't get it, and I've never experienced it, and it's just intriguing, even though I know that my personal me as a person, my personality, there's no way I could survive in this kind of in this work environment. I would be chewed up and spit out like instantly. But kudos to those who can, I guess.
Sure. You make a really good point, though. It's like I spent a good couple different chunks of time in New York, in the Queens area predominantly, but would spend time in the Wall District in the area and just being at bars or whatnot. Like there is a level of energy that you feel from people that are like day traders or whatnot. And as you were talking about dialogue and the way that people speak, it's so I found myself thinking of another movie that is more is very different, but has a similar realism to the dialogue, in my opinion, which was Nora from this year that I really fucking enjoyed. Really and I guess a lot of it is improvised, so that makes sense. But it's, situations feel honest and real. It's really beautifully performed movie. But you mentioned Wall Street and Glengarry and these great movies. The thing that like strikes me about this movie on this viewing so differently is Giovanni Ribisi, who plays the main character of the movie, the anti-protagonist, whatever the fuck he is. He's the most relatable vessel. Bud Fox, Charlie Sheen, or Al Pacino, or whoever you want to pick in the Glengarry Glen Ross caster, and a lot of these folks who are in these similar roles as Giovanni Ribisi in this movie, he's just so fucking empathetic and honest and relatable and like heartbreaking at times. And that's how I would feel if I were in his situation, is like, I'm just going to try to be who I am the best I can, which he fails at points. But at other points when people say certain things or whatnot, he's like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like, what is happening?
Smart. Yeah. He is very much like the voice of the audience. And I guess what makes him a really good character too, his character Seth, is that beyond his experience, once he starts working for that particular company, is that you're identifying with it because he just wants to, a lot of people can relate to it. Like he wants to impress his dad, do well by his father, who he feels like he is like disappointed, or his father makes it a point to point out how disappointing he has been. So that is like really easy. That's a vessel for like instant relatability, where that is like the main thing. Like, oh, okay, this is, this guy's main, what drives him is like, I want to do something to make my father proud. And I love that he is so fundamentally different from the other guys he ends up meeting, because it also shows that he, even though he adapts to it and does pretty well doing the job, he's still not like them. Like fundamentally, he is very different from them, because he has those feelings that, that he wants to please his father. And then he develops that relationship with Nia Long's character, which is a little underwritten. It feels kind of like thrown in for like, not that I have anything against Nia Long at all. I just feel like, the character and their relationship didn't have a lot of room to breathe. But I guess it's to show that, he has feelings and he's not, a slave to the job that he's doing, that he wants more, even though he does get sucked into the lifestyle a bit. Because, when you're watching the movie, it's almost like, how would you not get sucked in? Because it is there's all that kind of sense of camaraderie that like a lot of guys do strive for too. And, and then there's like, of course, the main thing being the money and like all that stuff as well. So it's easy to see how you would get sucked into it. But like, I guess the good thing about his character is you see it, but you see that like there's a soul there still.
He chooses redemption. He chooses redemption in the end, and he chooses redemption and saving this relationship with his father. It's not a relationship, Seth. I'm not your girlfriend. I'm your father. He saves the relationship with his dad by being like, Dad, get into my shady shit with me so I know you believe in me. And his dad decides, he's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do that. And that it's crazy how well written this movie is, like where that's the point that we get to, where it's like, how do we tie up making Seth not a piece of shit, making Seth get love and respect in his father's eyes, some level of self-respect and whatever. You're kind of talking about I don't think the Nia Long relationship is so much underwritten as it's just like, and maybe this is what you're saying too, maybe it's a more of a blanket kind of thing, but it's just a driver for Giovanni Ribisi to have like gasoline on the fire to keep trying to big dick Nicky Katt, who plays this kind of Gordon Gekko avatar, but way different. It's a totally different performance. It's a totally different approach. There's a different sensitivity. Like this, I think this is maybe the unsung. I have kind of mentioned on my podcast, the review, that Nicky Katt is this like unsung fucking hero a lot of the time when he shows up in a movie, and we should.
And you kind of forget that you forget that he's in it. Like when he pops in, you're like, oh yeah, he's in that. Because
he's fucking great.
So Nicky Katt, which is before I paid attention to what movies he was in, what I remembered him in growing up, I used to watch a show called Boston Public that David Kelly used to do. That's what I remembered him from the most, as one of the teachers. And then watching other movies I had seen before too, I was like, oh, that guy was in it, and it was him. And I guess this has happened a lot in the last few years where I'm watching certain things and there he is, and always a reliable presence, and was actually very good here. Like he kind of like has a lot of like
phenomenal
a bit of gravitas here that I wasn't really expecting. Like he comes off like pretty well, and like against a lot of people who are also trying to have that match a little bit of that energy in a different way. Where it'd be easy to get lost in this sea of ensemble.
Oh my god,
male performances here, and I know you talked about the cast and all that, but just so people know, and before we name off some of the people in the other people in the movie, tell everyone what the movie is about, like basic premise of the movie.
A young man who runs a casino decides that he is going to try his hand at day trading, only to find that those he becomes involved with are operating illegally. Essentially, I mean, that's leaving a lot out, but that's the best.
Well, that's a good basic log line of the movie.
Thank you.
College dropout, 19. Which is I was like, does Giovanni Ribisi look 19? I was like, I guess
I didn't know he was supposed to be 19.
I could go with it. You know, a lot of that was happening in the early 2000s. And yeah, good basic log line. And like we mentioned, a lot of people were in the movie. We already mentioned Giovanni Ribisi. We mentioned Vin Diesel and Neil Long and Nicky Katt. Then you have like Scott Conn, Jamie Kennedy, Tom Everett Scott, Ben Affleck, who I do remember. What I remember the most about seeing this movie a long time ago. I mean, I guess when it would come out on like home video, because I didn't see this in theaters. Was Ben Affleck getting a lot of solid reviews for this when this movie came out? Because he has some really fun standout monologues in the movie. Yeah, and we talk a lot about Ben Affleck. I mean, I know in recent years we talk about Ben Affleck as being a greater director than maybe performer and all that stuff. Okay, but Ben Affleck is a pretty good actor that I don't think gets enough credit for when he's like really good. And maybe because he emerged out of the whole Matt Damon thing, they all came in this together. And Matt Damon, I guess, on paper is a better actor than him. Like depending on who you
okay. I mean, it's all subjective, right? It's all subjective. But it's you again. Like it's the Glenn Ross mirror that you mentioned for me. Like he's the Baldwin. He's like your fucking DH pinch hitter.
Yeah, come in with like nice little extended cameo, and then like walk away.
Like now that's something the studio's like propping up and trying to get best supporting actor buzz for.
Yeah,
whatnot.
Nowadays they would do that. Yeah,
it's like this movie. I'm gonna cut back for a second. This movie opens with the fucking fantastic New Line logo with just like the film reel cut and respliced or whatever. And running all the president's faces on money. The soundtrack to this movie is fucking amazing. It's like Biggie and Brand Nubian and Tribe Called Quest and Rocket. It's a fucking amazing soundtrack. But the movie, the way it starts and the New Line thing of it all, where it's like this was still like Freddie, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like filmmakers taking chances, artists like really collaborating, and this was like a New Line movie. So it was like Ben Affleck and all these people just wanting to come in and wanting to see this thing. I think that they knew on paper was really fucking successful.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's interesting because I was trying to read upon it. I was like, why would Ben Affleck do it? I was like, did Ben Affleck did he have a relationship with Ben Younger?
Was it, yeah.
Because sometimes those kind of things happen where it's like, oh, like I know this person, like going to do a little favor and like hop in and do this. I couldn't find anything like that, so I guess it might have been one the new line of it all. And then also, depending on when certain people signed on, just saying like, oh, this is who else is in it. Like, I would love to be a part of it. And I think also maybe like everyone kind of wants like maybe it was their opportunity to feel like they can make their own generations like Wall Street. Like, oh,
yeah, see if, absolutely.
Like what this would be like. And I don't think of course it doesn't have the name recognition that the movie has today. And I don't even think it has a cult status either, because I mean like it feel like it would be a little bit bigger if it did.
Yeah.
But I think they did. I wouldn't call it a better movie than Wall Street, but I think it stands up alongside something like that pretty well. Yeah, like it does its job. I mean, like I had a friend that did tell me that they had seen it when I said we were going to do this, and he was like, "Oh, I love the movie, but I just feel like it." And I know I'm not gonna talk about the end yet, but what he had an issue with was like it feels like the ending gets wrapped up nice and tidy and like in a neat little bow, and he thought it was building up to something like a lot bigger, and then he kind of felt like the movie just kind of ended. And I was like, well, I mean, I guess I see your point, but I mean, also the movie is solid on the dot 120 minutes. It's already pretty long, and I was like, I didn't know where else you could take it, but I kind of got the point that, you know, because the stakes are getting higher and higher and higher and higher, and I guess I can see how he feels like the higher stakes don't really match how things conclude, I guess, at least on screen. I mean, a lot of it you're kind of like, I guess it's open to your interpretation, like, oh, where's going next? So I understood that, and I guess I guess there are a lot of reasons why it hasn't really, in the 25 years since it came out, why it hasn't gained more of an audience, especially if you just want to go back and watch where some of these people like kind of got their, not so much start with episode like Nia Long, but like what they were doing around this time before they became even bigger stars. You would think that like this movie would get a revisit based on that alone, based on like who's in the cast. But yeah, it just still seems like it hasn't really achieved that, and I'm a little surprised.
Same. I don't really get it. I wanted to mention earlier too, in terms of great Ben Affleck performances, Air, Hollywoodland, The Town, all great performances.
Yeah.
But this movie, like looking back on it, I guess like I have a similar reverence to it now as I did to Wall Street. I don't feel like that movie is like standing on the shoulders of giants. Boiler Room, for instance. I mean,
right.
It's not standing on the shoulders of Wall Street, or it's like a remix. It's like its own thing for a new generation, new people, new motivations and feelings and all this shit. And the movie, for me, it just cracks the entire time, because it's like,
it moves
3 acts. Well. He gives up the casino business, which we should mention, almost exactly at the halfway point of the movie, which is so fucking amazing in terms of writing and editing and all sorts of things. But Seth, for the first half of the movie, is running extremely closely, or not as closely, a casino business out of his house that he maybe could have figured out a way in the gaming world to have a career.
I know some people that still do that. Actually, I went to one like a month ago.
We should definitely try to like link up the next time I'm in LA. Just to hang out.
It's so funny too. Like I went to one a month ago, and my buddy Justin was the one that suggested that we go, and I was like, all right, well, whatever. I'd rather do this than like spend another weekend at the pier. So let's go. And we go in there, and I was just so surprised by how like it was so nicely set up. Like when you were looking at the house, you went that it would look very inconspicuous how it was all done up, but it was fun. And had a lot.
They had their own custom chips.
They had their own custom chips.
Their own so smart.
Yeah,
this kid was bringing in bicycle chips from the deli. So great. Well, they figure out like it's interesting too, because it helps establish how gambling and investing can be so similar. You're potentially trusting your money to, and how much coke they do up their nose. Or apparently Seth, like when you look in his kitchen, how much he potentially consumes, or his casino. Like, remember when they're in his kitchen and there's just like 40 empty 2-liter bottles of coke? When he's on the phone with the New York Daily guy.
And that was the first thing I noticed was like, oh, there's so many like empty and then half empty liters of Coke and then like red cups everywhere in the background.
Yeah.
I was like, I know this is like one little tiny shop, but whoever furnished his little apartment was like, that is so spot on what that would look like in his situation. And again, and you're right. Yeah, how those things are so similar. Like that's why he so easily adapts to the other profession because it's pretty much the same, but you just have to adjust a little. The moving parts are a little different, but at its heart, it's the same thing.
Well, his dad even says like, you've been telling us for 6 months that school's been going well or whatever. Like he's adept at this. Like he's a fucking liar.
Yeah.
Like this is what he does. And so the movie establishes all these things like super duper well. And we were talking about like the end of the movie. I think for me on what changed with this viewing, because I hadn't seen this movie for years, was that
same here.
Watching it years ago, it was like, yeah, they got those bad stockbroker guys. That was what I was walking away with, but now it's over, which was similar to Wall Street, where it's like Bud and Gordon have that interaction, and then the movie's like over. But with this one, the FBI arrives, and I'm like, oh, Harry has a chance to be made whole. That's a purposeful pun, but there's a chance for that. Chris has gotten some sort of redemption, as you kind of knew he was capable of, and the dad relationship is now fixed. And so like for me, it's less about these guys like getting busted than I think it had been the first few times I saw it.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's certain people's story. Like, I mean, mostly Seth's, but like you kind of pull the a lot of people that watch movies in general like want certain characters to either be redeemed by the end of it, and I think that. Or if someone is wronged in the movie, like can we try to make them whole? In this case, with Harry, let's try to make Harry whole because that it's interesting because that character not in a lot of scenes, right? But in the few that you get from the moment that he starts making this, you're pitching him on this thing, and up until what happens with him, it's only a few scenes, but you feel like the weight of all of that. And I guess I noticed that a bit more watching it this time, where I was like, oh, especially, I mean, I love the way his wife, the actress she's just like asking him all these questions.
Oh, yeah.
And then it sounded like, it really felt like an actress that wasn't acting. Like it felt like someone you would like how this conversation would go down, where she's like, okay, well, what is this? And how'd you hear about it? And how she find what? And you're investing, and how she find them? Like, no, they called me. Well, how they get like it's all asking all these like very pertinent questions, right? And and he kind of makes the point, like where he mentions like, hey, like I gotta run this by my wife first, and of course he doesn't want him to because like she would put the kibosh on it right away, and you can know from like how he mentioned that on the phone to how she's reacting to it when she finally confronts him about it, like that that's the reason. And like I just love like in a few scenes you get everything you need to know about that character, and then you feel sympathy for him as well, because this isn't some rant. This is like someone who has a family and 2 kids and a wife. This is not some this is someone, now you're putting a personality and actual like soul to like who you're taking money from, and that is what I thought was really interesting about that dynamic, and also done in not that many scenes, dude.
You hit the fucking nail on the head as I was about to say it. The first one of these people we see is like a doctor who's like, okay, I'll buy, but I can only buy this much. Oh my goodness. Like, and you feel you're like, yeah, all right, cool. That was cool. And then you see this dude that's like on the ragged edge that for whatever reason still believes in the American dream. Pal, America is the free market. Right. So, and his wife like is like, buddy, American dream is not what you think. We just need to like ride it out, save, like get some interest on some stuff and buy a house. And he's like coming apart at the seams when she questions him, as you said.
Yeah.
And there's this moment, because I really like the scene, and especially because I'm like, dude, this guy's like a fucking ticking time bomb. Like, get out. But like when she goes, it's like it's her back, and this is why this isn't like a perfect movie to me, because some of these other storylines, but you see the wife's back and she's going through the mail, and it almost feels like ADR, an actor recording in a studio and then dumping it over. In case, I assume all your listeners know that, but the wife says, Harry, who's JT Marlin? And it sounds almost just like it's from like an infomercial or something.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, hey, who are we investing with these days, Harry? Like, it's just because I agree. Like, overall, those scenes like really crack and they move, and like there's like some emotional kind of stakes that exist there. But that one time when she says that, like, it just fully takes me out. Like, I laughed. And like the FBI agents too, whenever we're just with the FBI agents, or whenever one of the top, what did we say, like 8 or 10 people that are in this movie are not in a scene, the scenes start to feel a little more CBS procedurally, like especially with the FBI guys.
Yeah, you're watching FBI or FBI Most Wanted or like something like that. Yeah, and you really, I mean, it's because I guess it's a combination is that they don't have like the same like energy, the same screen presence as like the main 8, I guess we'll say 8 people that are in the movie. And I totally got that point too, because like when those scenes shift, not that they're like horrible by any means, but it definitely is like it
feels different,
and like it does feel different. Like you feel like you're not watching like a major motion picture. Like you're right, you feel like you're watching a CBS procedural when certain people pop on screen. You're like, oh, well, it's like a much different film.
There's one moment though where it like cuts back to Harry and he's like freaking out about not getting his money back. And this great character actress, she's in Forrest Gump and Men in Black. She's Eggert, the skin is hanging off your bones. Siobhan Alan Hogan. She's in like a moment of this movie doing her thing and being very funny and engaging. But like overall, like it really feels like you're waiting for one of those FBI guys, like to be like looking over a crime scene and someone to be like, what happened? And him to be like, you tell me. They found the victim's penis in a jar of peanut butter. Sounds like our victim is our killer's fucking nuts. Like you feel like some shit like that's about to happen. It's a little hokey.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that too. I mean, like I said, it doesn't like affect the movie in a big way, but you definitely feel when like, even if it isn't all of the ensemble, the main ensemble that's in scenes, like I'll even if you just take like 2 or 3 of them put in the scene, that it's fine. But once like major players aren't featured, it does feel like a much different movie. I mean, it's a $7 million film, so it's not like it's
wow.
And it didn't break the bank. I mean, so even though it didn't make a lot of money, it didn't make its money back. So there's that. It made $28 million worldwide.
Oh, that's okay.
Not a huge hit by like New Line's probably expecting more.
That's a nice little pop though.
Well, I'm sure they like, threw a little something into their next project.
Well, that's still New Line as an independent operation.
Yeah.
So like that's a solid pop for them pre Lord of the Rings, post Warner Brothers buyout. Like that's solid. Yeah,
I agree. How do you feel? I mean, I know you talked about a little bit about Giovanni Ribisi, but because I was reading, there was one review I read that said that he gets better in the second half of the movie because they didn't quite buy him as he being transitioning into the kind of lifestyle he was getting into, and I don't know if that's because, as we mentioned, like we still need to have like a little bit of empathy for him, and like he still needs to feel like a someone we can relate to. I didn't really see like issues with his performance at all, but I wanted to see what you thought.
Thank you so much for asking that. Yes, as an actor, I can speak. I care about I think of things to draw on here. But I do believe that after he tells the story to Nia Long about his dad and breaking his leg,
which is actually a really good
slap in the face and whatnot, there's a foundational shift, I think, in the vulnerability of the character that kind of happens from there, and the kind of emotional explosion that he has, a couple emotional explosions he has, but the really particular one with his dad feels so earned and so honest. I really fucking like a lot of the Charlie Sheen shit from the 80s. He's like,
he sells it Charlie
Sheen, but like there is a level of just like kind of like a curious like darkness, like a sad but not like I'm gonna make you sad like darkness, like I feel sad, like kind of I hate to say like an Eeyore vibe, but there's something about it that he has that he carries until he doesn't. and I really feel it. And then the, you know, the explosion is a whole other thing. Like, how did you feel about his monologue to Nia Long, and then kind of, you know, that I love this writing piece of it being the thing that he brings back up to his dad.
So I loved that scene a lot. And I mean, I know some people might not like, oh, it's just a close up of them talking and like to make that scene more interesting. But I love how like almost like intimate that it is.
Yeah.
And it tells you everything that you need to know about his relationship with his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And the way he's talking to her about it, it's again, I love when actors are acting where it doesn't feel like they're acting or playing like a role, but it felt very real, as if I was watching that character actually tell that story. And it was very like sad too, because it's like, it was weird because I didn't remember that scene like verbatim, because I hadn't seen the movie in so long. But like one of the things I thought as he was telling it, and how he felt like his dad, the emotion from his dad, and then when she was like, but then he got upset, and then he slapped me or whatever, and she was like, well, why would he do that? And in my head I was like, probably because you like made him feel that, he got him to that point of like, and then he said it, and I was like, oh shit, like that is what I think most people in that situation, if they were recalling that story, like, oh, I wonder why he got so pissed, that would be the reaction that you would have. And it was just so honest. And I love that it's juxtaposed with like the other stuff, with these scenes with the other guys, where he's having this intimate moment with her, and then they're having that kind of riff. I think it's like when they're having that disagreement with the other Wall Street bros. Yeah. So I love that it's like cutting between those two things, and I think that is also to show that he is so much different from those guys. Like, he's having a moment with a woman and spilling his heart out in an honest way.
Mm-hmm.
And then they are doing what you would expect, guys like that in their position to be doing it. So I love that they cut back and forth between those two things. And then, the whole scene that he has late in the movie with his dad, I teared up a little bit. I mean, it was
his, really good,
because it's so much like, it's like it's a release that you feel like he needs, like,
oh yeah,
and like and how, I don't know if you've ever gotten that emotional or watched other people get that emotional, where you are so upset it feels like it's just word vomit, and it makes sense to you probably in your head, but to the person listening to it, it's like, whoa, where is this coming from? Like, like his dad even is reacting to it that way, like, what, you quit you shut it down, like, he's like talking almost like I didn't realize all these things, right? And like, because word vomit. And I love how he's crying, but not quite like, it's not like crocodile tears or anything. Like, it's all this emotion, really, like, as an actor, you're probably carefully controlled, but it felt like so powerful and so genuine. And I
everybody,
I know you have this you have this kind of complicated relationship with your father, but you still need his help, and that's another hard thing to do, like, to go up to something like, I fucked up again. That is a big part of that too. It's like, I fucked up again. Now I got to admit to you that I fucked up again.
Well, it's the thing that's so hard, I think, to wrestle with, is just like, the dichotomy of like, what is success? Is it money? Is it this or that? Because it's like, his casino was a successful business, and his dad saw it as like, you're stealing from the members of this community, as they kind of freely came in and wanted to take advantage of his business and services and whatnot. And he talks about how he can't have a job, and it's either sell crack rock or have a jump shot. And so he sold crack rock, which was essentially shit investments, like that you're going to keep chasing a high on or what have you. And his dad, never gave him any sort of affirmation or gratification about the casino business, or that he attempted school, like the things that he wanted. And his dad was always writing him about it, right? And so to get his mom to talk to him on the phone, and the dad overhears the mom saying, but your father loves you, right? And that to be the big shift in him, where he's like, okay, I guess like none of the stuff that he's doing is like legal, and I'm a judge and I'm worried about me, and morally I'm on the high ground and this guy's been fucking up, but he's good at this stuff. I can help him take down these like bad people. That's the thing. Right. It's like, I just feel like the bow of it all, of the writing, it all just is like boop, 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 boop. As you were kind of talking about the bow of him hitting that crescendo of the bow of wrapping up the story of the bike and the broken leg. Right. That is a fucking person dumping 12, 13 years of trauma of like, what the fuck happened here? Like, why? I was a child. And for his dad to just be like, because I didn't know what else to do, because I was so mad that I felt so much and I couldn't stop what was happening. It's just, there's some fucking beautiful acting in this movie. It's super well written.
And also, it also kind of shows that, like, for all the misunderstanding, like him, like, why doesn't my dad understand me? There's also the other side of that, where you have a father that probably is frustrated because he doesn't quite know what to do with his son, and that's another added layer to that too. I mean, they both have their own like issues, and what makes their relationship so I guess fractured at first, and I think it works both ways, where you have two people who, like, maybe if they kind of just sat down and like talk to each other for a second, probably would like
tried to have a coffee or something.
Would figure their shit out. But
and Giovanni Ribisi tries to do that. He's like, let's get coffee, and the dad's like, what the fuck is this?
And I think like when fathers have sons who have like, oh, like, what did you do now, or like that kind of thing, like they start to, it's harder for them to just kind of step into casual conversations with their sons or daughters or whatever, when it's like, like, what did you get yourself into?
My dad's journey must be still very hard. And
I guess like that's funny. And like, but I do love that, like, that is always at the peripheral of the story too. I mean, like, there is this whole like stuff with these people selling scam ass investments and all that, but at the heart of the story, it's like, it's a movie about a father and a son, and a son trying to like please his father and live up to his father's like expectations, and like that is what drives him and all that. So I love that there's more to it than just what the movie is selling itself on.
Well, and it's like all that other stuff that's around it is fun. Like when we're with the FBI or we're at Harry's, I do find myself sometimes being like, "Where's Poochie? Like, get me back!" Because I want the frost. I want the frosting. I want the icing of like Jamie Kennedy being like, "I need some nose candy," or like Scott Conn kicking the shit out of people, or people monologuing, or like there's this fucking great dynamic between Nicky Katt and Vin Diesel. The two guys that I think you and I have both been like, these are like the unsung fucking heroes of this movie. This is like Optimus Prime and Megatron. This is great. And there's such a good amount of that. And I do think, back to, since this is a big part of it, I do feel chemistry between Nia Long and Giovanni Ribisi for sure.
No, they do. They do.
I do love whenever they're together. I agree that it's the way it's written is a little clunky or whatever, but like they seem like they like want to get each other nude.
I get they definitely have chemistry, and kudos to her, because like she's like the only. I mean, there are other like women in the movie, but she's the only one with a significant role in the film as a female performer. So she's definitely in a boys' club and holds her own. I mean, in the scenes where she holds her own in a few moments with Nicky Katt, where he is like, there's like a whole situation in history there, and she shuts that down.
I disagree
a couple times. A few times with my love. I think they sell it better than maybe what was on the page, because I feel like there wasn't a lot there for them, as far as like, because there's a lot of movie, right? There's a lot of stuff to tackle, and I just feel like, I guess, like the time with them together, I guess, feels shortchanged. But I do think that they do have good chemistry and sell what they can with that kind of growing relationship.
Well, and their dynamic may be slightly underwritten, but I pick up in the writing, because at one point Giovanni Ribisi's like, you're a black woman surrounded by like these fucking insane people. Like, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm paid well and yada, yada. And then you kind of start to find out through the FBI, they're like, you signed every ticket. Like we have you for every, like she was essentially like a potential patsy that these guys like set up and like for specific like shit reasons. Like when you see
she thinks she's a lowly secretary and she's like, no.
Yeah, and they're gonna be like, well, she was the one who did whatever, embezzled this or that. Like it seems like she's in a vulnerable position, and they hired her to be there, like to put her in that spot and not have people ask a lot of questions about it. She's really fucking solid in that role. Like whenever she's with the FBI people, like that's when she really gets to sing, I think. Like when she's with her mom and the mom storyline and that kind of stuff, like she's got a pretty well fleshed out character, but when she feels like that imminent danger, like I don't know, I feel like the performance really starts to hit.
She has like a really nice strong moment when they call her while she's at work, and I think she kind of like basically like, well, you ain't got nothing on me. She feels like pretty confident. And then he's like, well,
you signed every ticket.
Yeah, and then she kind of like, she definitely does a lot with like what she's given.
I agree.
I will give her that. And then, like you said, she does have really good, solid chemistry with Giovanni Ribisi, and you kind of want unhappy sort of ending for them, probably.
That probably happened
off screen.
They cooperated with the FBI and got to walk. Like one hopes that at the very least, like they're probably not going to end up together in some sort of traditional like off into the sunset sort of a thing or anything. But the Tom Everett Scott performance too. There's a really good scene with Ribisi, Tom Everett Scott, and Nikki Katt, and a lot of the scenes in this movie are like big actors trying to big dick each other who has the power, and it's really just like Glengarry, just like Wall Street. And in my opinion, it really works. But there's a moment, and it was hard for me to put together exactly the very entry of the movie where it's like 3 months ago, or it does the thing and then it says 3 months later, and it's like, wait, 3 months later from when or where or how does this fit in? I guess I lost the trail of that. But when Tom Everett Scott's like, we've got some ladies for you up in room 420, like I tried them myself. Like the way he says that, like you get this idea that that it's like him be like, it's like a conqueror thing. Like that's part of like the motivation of a lot of these guys is just conquering, and they don't care if it's a Harry or if it's a Dr. Jimmy Joe Bald guy. They don't care. It's the thrill of the hunt and the kill.
And I think that works twofold too, because it works for that in setting up like who they are as people, and then just how seedy that profession can be. Like once it really is like I'm glad you made the comment about it. There's a lot of scenes where everyone seems like they're just kind of big dicking each other, because that is a lot of the scenes in their office feel that way. I mean, I love that dynamic with Vin Diesel and Nikki Katt, because I was like, when I watched it, I was like, is there respect there? Do they like each other? I can't quite tell.
Weird, right?
It's like initially, like, because they don't get to a point where they like throw blows or anything. Like it's not like that. Like they just kind of like they throw like verbal jabs, and I can't tell if the verbal jabs are like, if there's some respect there because they know each other a bit, probably. But like it's just it's interesting. I was like, I don't know what this relationship is like, but there seems to be enough respect where they don't go too far with each other, so that was like I was always trying to figure out their dynamic.
You make a really good point. I think Vin Diesel is like a cooler to a degree in all of this. Like Scott Con's like a fucking spark plug. He's fucking nuts. He wants to rip everybody's face off.
Play to his strengths. That's what Scott Conn is good at.
I love it when they get told by the table full of gay dudes, like they get put in their place. That was fucking great.
Yeah, but that seems interesting too, man. Because I was like, because I didn't remember that at all from when I seen it years ago, and I was like, whoa, how's this going to play out? Because I know that
I didn't remember either. But I love it.
Because I also remember, I mean, movies treated all those situations much differently in 2000 than we do now. I think we were a little sensitive on how we would write a scene that way. And I was like, because like the stuff that he's saying is so offensive to them. And I was like, oh, that's not good. But then to have them not kind of back down and also kind of put them in their place, I was like, okay, that was really well written and well done to have it like, you know, they were on equal footing with each other, and it wasn't like, you know, the one side got over to the other. And I thought that was a nice way to kind of put a button on that scene.
So you're making an excellent point that that alludes to the point I was going to make. Nicky Cat and Giovanni Ribisi have a talk in Nicky Cat's Ferrari where Nicky Cat was a guy stepped up to him and Nicky Cat's like, I was going to shit my pants. Like, our crew like saved my life. If you did that in Hebrew school, like that's unimaginable. Like if somebody got pushed down, like that's the worst thing that could happen. And they have a laugh about it or whatever. And later in the movie, Nicky Cat does what they have agreed is essential to like, sorry for the graphicness of like walking up to him and hitting him in the head with a fucking hammer or something. Like when he pushes him on the ground. Like at that moment, you're talking about equal footing and everything. Like everything has like when Nicky Cat's like, you're my bitch. Like that, like it's like, dude, the way he somehow that the fact that Gordon Gekko in Wall Street exists and that I could never have watched Wall Street or watched Wall Street 100 times or seen it in any version or whatever. And this being entirely its own thing is like a fucking artist painting a masterpiece. This is reminding me of part of why I rewatched a Soderbergh movie called Behind the Candelabra the other day, and Nicky Cat showed up, and I was delighted. He goes,
he does so many things, man. Like he's in Insomnia, which I always think, like when I watched that for our podcast, I think it was like a year and a half ago. I was like, oh yeah, you're in that too. Like stuff like I don't know, like I mean, he's in A Time to Kill. Like I randomly, I was like, oh, you're like, what the fuck? He's
School of Rock.
Unsung fucking like that. No, like
the Burbs.
Like unsung hero. That guy. But yeah, I do love that scene because it is a good callback to like that's essentially what he does to Giovanni Ribisi in that scene of like almost like you're overstepping and then to do it in front of everybody. And I do love that. I love the Vin Diesel character too, Chris, because he does kind of take Seth under his wing a bit, and it's kind of like,
absolutely.
Which I was kind of wondering because like by the time we get to the end of the movie and I was like, is he pulling Chris in because he needs a senior exec to sign off on this, or does he care enough about him to be like, yo, you got 20 minutes to figure out what you want to do before they raid this place, or is it just like both things are true where it's like I need I see your executive signature, but I also want to get you out of this because you've been pretty decent to me. I was like trying to figure that out, like in the, while watching it.
I think it's both of those things, as well as gaining the leverage to get what he wants. Right. I'm telling you, I'm giving you a 15-minute head start to be able to escape. Yeah. You've got to sign this. And at that point, like if you're a decent person, you're like, fuck, I got to sign it. Yeah, I got like you did this 15-minute heads up for me or whatever. And Chris also, like you said, the taking under the wing piece.
Yeah.
Chris, I think knows Nicky Cat is problematic. He's got this former thing with Nia Long /
and that's Abby. A lot of where Nicky Cat's character's issues has to do with. It's the Nia Long character and all of that. It's like he is just a jealous, envious, like upset, like
but Diesel helps him close like his first guy that he closes, and Nicky Cat tries to lecture him about it, and Vin Diesel's like, dude, I was right there. Like it's built so well in the writing that if he's going to be able to pull off Giovanni Ribisi, this IPO scheme, and get a senior broker to help him, it's got to be Chris. But the thing that outside of that inevitably being what it's going to be is that scene in the stairwell is so good. Like, as you were saying, Vin Diesel's acting just like fucking, he's a man apart in this moment.
There you go.
Yeah.
he's not a knockaround guy.
He doesn't need a pacifier. He's a man. But like he doesn't pitch the bitch, as they say in this movie. That's the other thing too, that I think that's what the movie I think is consciously doing, is like, we're gonna make sure that we portray give you this world as maybe Ben Younger has seen it exist, where it's a bunch of like extremely toxic, scary dudes doing unimaginable shit. And that there may be some female secretaries there or whatever, but for the most part, this is something else, I guess. Yeah, like a boy. That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah, it's a total boys club. And that scene is really well done too, because he tells him like, "Hey, this is what you need to do. I'm going to give you this much of a head start," and he's telling him about the whole that situation with the FBI. And I love it. He's very, very careful with his words, because he's like, well, what the fuck did you? He's like, what the fuck did you tell them? And he's like, I didn't tell them anything. Like, they already knew. They had pictures. They already had recorded conversations. Like, just being very careful not to like make
and
sure
honest.
And honest, like, don't like all the things you're saying won't totally betray his trust. Because like, if you say that you talked or anything like that, then like that'll be it. But like, no, man, I am an innocent in this as well. And like, he has the way he's delivering the dialogue. It's like, it is like, hey, I have a way out for both of us, but this is what you need to do. And really, I mean, like, you can feel, even though it's only a scene between two people and it's not like it takes place like anywhere that would like generate a ton of tension, there is a lot of like, you have this decision to make, a life-changing one right now, and you feel that from Vin Diesel as he's like trying to like, what should I do? And then also Giovanni Ribisi being like, you need to do this. Like, and like, you don't have a lot of time. And like, they both play it really well.
Well, and yeah, absolutely. And this also, the movie does a really good job of manipulating us with this. Not only the soundtrack and the score, which the score feels a little weird at sometimes, like at some points. The movies feels like a music video at times. Again, it just like pops, it moves. It's like super electric, but it does a great job of kind of saying a lot of these things that a lot of these guys believe in terms of like a level of bigotry and racism and fear and whatnot. In the end, like all of these preconceived notions and concepts of what people are or blah, 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 blah is like bullshit. Like Nia Long and Giovanni Ribisi and Vin Diesel, like in the end are like people who are trying, if not good, are trying to be
like doing their best.
It crosses all barriers. Like, it doesn't make a difference necessarily. Like, and it doesn't go after anything. It's just crazy, as I was saying about the soundtrack and the way it breaks down characters, and we're talking about character approaches. The movie is so steeped in that racial and cultural shit. I forgot about how insanely, like, where it's like, oh man, like at times it's like, I'm like, fuck, I want to rewatch like Belly. I want to rewatch like Dead Presidents as I'm watching this movie, which was like a great feeling. I forgot that it gave me that sort of a buzz. I don't know if you get that, but I did.
No, it was interesting too, because like when it started, I think it's like in the first few minutes, and like, I think it's Jamie Kennedy that drops the N-bomb. Or someone does. Either Scott Conn or one of them does. And
they say the N-bomb and or variation of. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, but like it was one of those things where I was like, oh, that took me aback. But then I was like, well, it's very like in that environment that those guys are in, they would definitely be chatting like that, because I that's why I loved all the comparisons to like kind of like, the rap culture and Biggie Smalls and all that stuff, because I think a lot of those guys at that age and at that particular age, when they're in that profession, they do kind of think of it that way. It's their own, like, kind of yuppie version of kind of living a more like thugged out culture, like lifestyle, and
being
really,
crack dealers.
Yeah. So like, I love that in several scenes they don't gloss over that. They don't gloss the racing is kind of, it is brought up and not glossed over. The whole thing with Neil, when you asked Nia Long about her position there, like, I'm glad that it's just not given like any kind of surface level kind of stuff, because that was very, I mean, it still very much is a real thing. I just don't know how honest they would be about it in a movie like this today, because everyone's very sensitive about like not offending anyone when you're just really just trying to depict like a lifestyle and depict that lifestyle honestly. And that's why I'm always taken aback sometimes when I watch movies from this era. I was like, oh yeah, they weren't afraid to do that. And there's an argument to be made about whether or not that should have been dialed back a bit if it was offensive, like whatever. But I love watching stuff like that now, because it was like, well, at least they had the balls to be honest about it, because I think I would find that element missing from it if it wasn't addressed, especially with certain characters being in a movie like this and having it not be brought up, like on some level.
For me, it's like watching White Man Can't Jump. It has to be addressed in some way by someone, not necessarily a specific word or anything like that.
Yeah.
But like the fact that people exist in this world, there are discussions and vibes and things and whatever that like race and culture intersect with. And if you're not going to talk about it, it just feels inauthentic. That's the thing that has been really difficult for me with some of like the hyper realistic, weirdly shot stuff for streaming is it's fucking milquetoast.
Yeah. It really
not
is.
Only in terms of the look, but the writing, there are no teeth. It's very strange to me that, I don't know, a level of toxic positivity has bled into, I think, some of the films that excite my interest. Like I watch it and then I'm like, oh.
Yeah. It's been like diluted in so many ways to the point where it's like you're not really.
You got to hit all 5 points. Yeah, hit all 4 quadrants. Like no, please.
Yeah. But that's why I was like, and again, it's not just this movie, but whenever we watch, especially from this, I feel like something but like in 1988, 99, the early 2000s, like, and we've covered a lot of movies from that era on the show. And, we've had guests on when we address certain aspects of like dialogue and things that were like allowed to be said in movies like that or done in movies from this era. And it really has sparked a discussion where it's a mix of like, oh, it feels very offensive. I don't know how we were able to talk about those things or say those things so much in movies back then and no one seemed to check anyone on it. But one
you can also
watch
any Tarantino movie from any
so
on the filmmaker and what their intention is or what they're trying to do, or I don't know, but there's a lot of weird. That's for certain.
Yeah, it would be weird watching something like this and just having like, man, I feel like there's some stuff here like on the periphery we're not talking about, but I'm glad that he was, as a writer, was bold enough to address it, and it's not heavy-handed. And it was not heavy-handed, but it also wasn't just thrown in and like, oh, like if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. Like it was done just the right amount. Like I thought.
It feels business casual. That's the best way I can.
I
agree with you. Where it's like you put a little thought into it. Like there's something about it that feels intentional. Where it's like, I've said this about the movie Heathers. I've said this about a bunch of different movies. No one needs to hear my fucking list. But people that are shitty speak in a shitty way. They use shitty words. They don't care about these things.
If you're writing a shitty character, then a shitty character. Honestly, I don't know. Yeah,
and there's power in numbers. There's a level of like groupthink or safety or that you get, I assume, being in some sort of cult or gang, or it's like, you don't fuck with my crew, whatever it is. And so it's just like, I assume that they can't help but speak like each other, as you and I. Like, are like, I don't fucking need to or speak that. I don't associate with those people. So
yeah. I know they exist, but I don't.
Right. Exactly. I see them.
Right. Because like I said earlier, man, like there's no way I could thrive in this profession at all.
Right.
I mean, like, when I'm watching it, I'm so intrigued by it too. Like, it's just like, it takes a certain personality, right? Also seems like you'd be stressed to like the nines, like every day. I don't know how and like a lot of these movies, what they sell well to me is selling that level of stress where it feels like you're watching these like actors like look like they're about to like pop a blood vessel like in certain scenes, and like they sell that really well. And like one of the reviews I read that actually gave it a positive review, but they did say this is a movie that feels like it sells itself more on atmosphere and setting rather than character development. And that's what he felt like he was more sucked into what being like you are there kind of situation with all the like the scenes.
It's photographed beautifully. It's photographed and lit gorgeously.
Yeah. And you do feel the energy of like when they're like, in the thick of it. And I mean, I love those things too. But I won't agree with that review is like I think the character development where it counts because everyone doesn't need a redemption arc or a big character arc as well. Like the people that get it, and they are the ones that deserve it. So like
the father and son are it. That's it.
Yeah.
In the end, like this is. Yeah. We did Amelie recently on the review, and I brought up, I was like, well, I wanted this person, and Ben brought up the point to me, like, well, this is Amelie's story, and I was like, oh yeah, it's called Amelie, not Amelie and Joe the fucking plumber or whatever. I know this is Boiler Room, and it's everybody that's in there, but it's a father-son story in the end, like at its heart, like to whatever degree, I guess I want to know these other things, and I also agree with the really dynamically lit and shot stuff is like the stuff in the boardroom with Affleck, the stuff where they're doing parties at houses or bars or whatever, or when you see that huge empty building with just all the phones and the way that's lit and how effective that is. I think it does a great job with character development through costume, through acting, and through atmosphere. The only thing where it falters for me with that is like when it cuts to like, what's the FBI doing? And suddenly it's the second unit doing shit for NCIS. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. And maybe that's because like, like we said, like Ben Younger kind of lived certain parts of this.
Yeah.
And was able to write that effectively because like, hey, it's something that he knew. And then maybe that other stuff is like, you could like talk to people like, oh, how would the FBI handle this and like try to write this realistically. But I think that's why all that the other stuff pops really well, and maybe their stuff doesn't because it wasn't something that he was familiar with entirely.
Yeah,
it like all their stuff feels very by the book and by the numbers. Like it hits all the right beats as like this is what the FBI would do if if you're watching like a TV show like you said on CBS. And
I think you wrapped up why and like because I've been just like. I don't know what the word is that the young kids use, but I've been just loving this movie, just the riz and all the happiness and the flame over this movie. But like when it cuts to the other stories, it's like, I don't love the lighting. I don't love the acting. I don't love the writing. Maybe this is why I don't love the writing and why these scenes just don't like do it for me like some of the other ones. And because the movie's always moving, and then this other shit
like pause.
And I'm like, ah. But I mean, I will say, I do own this movie on HDX through Fandango at home because I had this movie on DVD, and I used the barcode to get it moved to digital because you just scan your barcode, and then that's what you do, and you get your movie. And then so I watched it in beautiful HDX.
I didn't own it, and I had to find ways to get it, but I didn't get it. And it's on my hard drive now. But
I would love. We can talk. Yeah, I was to say we can talk offline depending on how you like to do these things.
I would love to own a proper copy of this. So I mean,
oh my god,
I guess I wonder if it's one of those movies that maybe some like one of those like Criterion wouldn't do it, but like if someone would like be like, hey, like. Give us a proper release of it on physical media, and I don't think that anyone involved in it is ashamed of it. So I feel like they would like maybe talk about it, like as a.
I can't imagine why they wouldn't. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like if New Line Warner, it's like Warner just came out with that 4K steelbook of Nightmare on Elm Street, right?
Yeah,
it's like I would love to see a 4K steelbook of Boiler Room because that's where it would live because it's New Line. Most likely. And as you said, and as I believe is true, like what boutique distribution company like would go for this? Like Kino Lorber, maybe? I don't know what their relationship is with New Line.
Like Arrow?
Maybe, but it's just one of those things that's like I don't know where it ends up if it doesn't get a steelbook release, which it absolutely deserves, despite whatever level of recognition people have. Ben Younger's resume is what it is. The movie made what it made. The cast is what it is. You're listening to this podcast, and we're telling you, you should probably.
And that's the cool thing about doing movies like this on the show is like, the bigger movies do well for our show, because they're bigger movies. But then like what happens though is that everyone is covering like last year like Batman '89 or something like that.
Oh yeah,
its right.
Back to the Future was
but then we get lucky and like we cover these smaller ones, and they do hit with people that are like, oh, like I remember that movie, but I haven't seen it forever, or even they may not have heard of it, like we said, but then they look at the cast and they're like, whoa, how did I not hear of it? I hate to have like it sucks that it had this whole like kind of came and went like kind of thing attached to it, but man, like I said, when I was rewatching it, I was I love that you named all those good movies that Ben Affleck is actually a good actor in. I don't want to make it seem like he's not. He is a. I think. I think he's a good actor, but it is interesting watching like young Ben Affleck and young Vin Diesel, and it seemed like they had like so much like they were hungry for it. Being in like these kind of things.
Affleck was the bomb and Phantom. And
oh God, was that the year before this, or was that '98? Yeah, I forgot that he was in that.
Yeah, a year or two before.
But they were just hungry, and you could tell that like they were like giving it their all, and like and it's just like, man, like what their career. Like, you can't fault Vin Diesel.
Hollywood's a crazy thing.
His career went, but I was like, man, Hollywood like, actually had.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the industry forgets that he was this good. Like if it was like yo, he can. If you give him like, I don't know if he can do it now. I mean, I don't know like what his like level of like I want to show people what I can do now is at his age, at this stage of his career, and like if he's just like comfortable in like what he's doing. Yeah. But like, I wonder if they remember this stuff. Like he actually like he had some chops.
I'm absolutely certain his like dedicated fandom, which I'm sure that he has quite a dedicated fandom, remembers this stuff. We obviously look at it with reverence, and now Hollywood's just so fucking crazy now because New Line Cinema doesn't exist as an independent studio that goes, hey, we got to get a great cast, a great director, and we're gambling on the 7 million. We really need this movie to make like 20. And like and it's one of their 5 or 7 releases that year. Now New Line's part of Warner, which Warner does, fucking internet, toys, streaming TV, theme parks, like everything is kind of, thought and packaged and 4-quadranted and etc. like before we get it. And the big thing that like for Universal Comcast, one of their huge franchises is the Fast and the Furious. And that is a massive fucking undertaking every single time. So when Vin Diesel does something between those, that's like him probably taking, one assumes, almost no downtime. I don't know. You say hi to friends. Hey, Dwayne, like whatever you can do. But
like, it's
and I feel, similarly about Ben Affleck, at least for several years. It's like he's dedicating a lot of time to directing. I thought his script or not script, but the script by Alex Convery and the performance of Phil Knight, I thought Air was fucking great. I'm a sneakerhead. I love Nike shit. I love the lore. I've read Shoe Dog, documentaries, all that. And Affleck is so great at that shit. But again, now he's got artist equity, right? And that is hopefully his main thing is like, really driving that. But Vin Diesel is wrapped up in this agents, managers, package deals, all these things that like keep, and it's 2 more Fast movies or 1.
It's hard to tell now. I feel like they want to change the direction of where, because the last one cost so much to make, and like there's so many people that are like, can you bring it back to like basics? And he's trying to please everyone.
First one,
and
I
think they're so like he's definitely become a product. Like everything's kind of like he's a part of that machine now, and and same thing with Ben Affleck as well. Maybe not as bad as Vin Diesel, but
he's trying to do artist equity, right? So
so like there's a lot, but it is interesting to go back at this time and what they're doing, because like all the things with Ben Affleck, because like you made a good point. Like I think if this were to come out today, the studio would probably sell him on like, let's get him a Best Supporting Actor nomination, just because like he popped in for a little bit and did like 3 and great scenes that he's in, by the way. Like his monologues, I think, are meant to be there to sell, like in case you aren't like visually seeing it, like this is what the lifestyle is and this is what they need, that this is what they're selling. Like he is that voice for that industry, and I think it works well for that. it doesn't really feel shoehorned in, maybe because it's written so well and performed so well that it actually works.
And you make some good points. It's like, okay, if we made this today, like some of the dialogue or the verbiage or like the slurs that are used, some of these things are probably tweaked, changed, etc. But some of the stuff, like, preservation's important. Accuracy in portrayal sometimes, especially when you're watching a grounded drama, which is what this movie is important. Is some of the stockbroking shit heightened? Yeah. Is some of the like, we like to get drunk and go fighting around the world? Like, that's dramatized. But the father-son stuff is very grounded. The who's a decent person, whatever, is like very grounded. And keep in mind, the people that are in charge of people's money, Wolf of Wall Street, Wall Street, Glengarry, the list goes on. And the people that are in charge of a lot of systems in this world are people that speak with impunity and believe whatever the fucking rhetoric that they want to spew or whatever. And there's a level of like, this may be unpleasant to watch in this movie Boiler Room, but isn't it more pleasant to watch in this movie Boiler Room than it is to experience it every day from whatever level? It's like you're at least controlling it, and you're getting a level of accuracy and honesty from these actors as to like how these characters are written and how they'd operate. It's super authentic. It's fucking good.
Yeah,
movie.
and that's what I respected for. And again, it's not going to change with our little show or whatever. They got a little guest appearance from
she got really demanding.
But I hope it does find a bigger audience, I guess. I mean, it's deserving of one, and it really, holds its own, and it's really well written. That there's some things that maybe you could tweak and change a bit, but like I think for the most part it works, and it, like you said, it pops until like a couple scenes where it doesn't, but like it mostly pops, and like it was very well acted across the board. For that reviewer that said like the thing about character development, I don't need to know where Scott Caan's character ends up, or or Jamie Katie's character. Like they are supporting Tom and like
Scott.
they are there to kind of sell the world, and that's about it. And,
let's assume prison.
They probably that's probably
straight to jail. Straight to jail.
Yeah, but that's what I enjoyed that, like it had a character, like I said, like the main thing about the story is a relationship between a father and a son, and that
is repaired at the end.
And it is given that relationship is given room to breathe and develop, and you watch it kind of go from where it is at the beginning to where it ends up. And I enjoyed that aspect of it. Of course, I enjoyed all the fun, buy, sell stuff and all, because it's fun, right? God, like you get caught up in it. But
I'm gonna come.
And like, and then learning all like learning all the lingo and stuff like that. I don't know. It is well crafted and well done, and I hope that more people give it some time. And it would great. It'd be great if we did get a nice little steelbook special edition of it.
25 years.
Because it is deserving of one.
And which I think is what Scott Caan had every night shooting.
Yeah, 25 years. And also, guys, I know we keep saying it. If anything, watch it as an example of like how good Vin Diesel once was. Like back in it, like so you could be pleasantly like surprised and shocked by how good he is in it. I don't know. Like that is what I.
It's chock full of great performances.
That's not what I mostly took from it, but I was like, good. I was like, God damn, dude! Like, what happened? You're so good.
It's crazy how much of a stark reminder of how good he is. The Iron Giant was for me last summer.
Yeah, I mean his voice. It's all like he commands a lot of authority. I mean,
what a tool, what a weapon to have.
And what this proves is that he had so much screen presence and charisma. I mean, when he is like when he gets up and he's like quoting along to Wall Street, like all the Michael Douglas stuff. I was like that was really fucking good. Like he was like, and then like I was just impressed by him. And also, I won't say I forgot about Junior Valor BC because I remember during this time period he was in a few things. I just forgot how good he could be too. he a pretty dynamic actor. Like I think we're gonna cover The Gift on the show at some point.
Oh, nice.
With like Kate Blanchett and
yeah.
a lot of people in that movie.
Keanu.
And I remember, and who that guy also fucking great in that. Where you're like, he can't act. Like, well, watch that.
Point Break. Yeah.
But Jim RBC like had a lot of range too. I mean, he could play this and then play someone completely unhinged in something like The Gift, and then also be decently like just a background actor in something like Gone 60 Seconds or something. Like he could actually do a lot without like he had. I mean, I think he does behind the scenes stuff in film now and like does occasionally act. Not he definitely isn't like what he was during this period, but yeah, I mean, if anything, this is a good like time capsule. Like, man, these guys were on the way up.
Oh yeah. Kind of like depending on how you look at it, the height of their powers.
Yeah.
I'm so tempted to do a monologue from Wall Street right now. I'm not going to do it. I'm very tempted.
That's another movie I've been watching in a really long time.
Same.
Definitely watch that. Never. You know what? I did see the sequel, but I don't remember it.
Money Never Sleeps.
Yeah, I don't remember it.
I don't either, to be honest with you.
Maybe that's a sign.
Don't be shy. Don't be shy about it. It's okay. I haven't seen it either. Don't worry.
Is there any final thoughts? Anything you want to say about the movie that you didn't get to speak on?
No, I just feel like maybe people skipped this movie or have skipped this movie since one of these movies is, Wolf of Wall Street is post this movie existing. Yeah. But I think it's gotten lost in the shuffle of always keep an eye on your money movies.
Yeah.
And like, I just think it's, it's a couple hours. It might be a difficult find, but it's also available through mega conglomerates on the internet. If you do the hard format media shit like we do, especially if you're still into DVDs or Blu-rays, seems to be readily available. I guess the thing that, man, it beautifully does the thing, and it's just hitting me now. Wall Street is a father-son story.
Yeah.
And so is this. And it's just, again, it's beautiful how it's the same but different, like we were talking about. It's a dollar bill in one hand and 4 quarters in the other. It'll get me the same amount of distance, the same place. It's the same thing. It's all good. It's just a different way.
Yeah, and I think for people that are more familiar with Wall Street or the Wolf of Wall Street, especially, I think a lot of younger people with the Wolf of Wall Street will look at that and be like, "Oh, because that movie pops and it goes, and there's a lot."
Oh my god, that movie's great!
Right,
yeah,
right. And this might seem tame in comparison, but just kind of remember like when this came out, and also like everything doesn't need to be like the Wolf of Wall Street. It still sells a very similar story, but in a different way. And I like I said, it holds its own pretty well. I mean, if you want to have a yuppie stockbroker marathon, like don't leave it out.
Absolutely.
It should still be included.
Yuppie crack dealer movies. Yeah,
there you go.
And I just on the note of other movies to think of or consider or watch, and movies that this makes me think of at times, it's like New Jack City and Deep Cover and just other movies that are. This movie is, again, it's said at the beginning of the movie, this is a movie about dealing crack from a different perspective.
Okay.
Watch those movies and watch the movies about dealing crack from the dealing crack perspective. Like it's all good. It's all good. Crack.
Yeah. And dude, talk about a movie I want to cover on the show and having
Deep Cover.
That too. New Jack City,
sure.
Another one. That New Jack City is
an episode I will look forward to listening to.
Wesley Snipes is like full throttle in that.
The filmography stands on quite the strong pillar for Wesley Snipes.
Yeah. So we do score these movies on the show, however you want to do it, whether you want to do the letterbox, or we're going to give it a letter grade 1 through 10, however you want to do it.
I like the letterboxed.
Okay.
The 1 through 5.
1 through 5. So what do you give?
So I walked into it giving it 4 2 liters of Coke out of 5. This was a really fun, good chat and made me think about things I hadn't thought about, as well as a little more closely to the things I have. And I think I'm going to stay at the 4. I'm creeping so dangerously close to the 4.5.
Yeah, 4.2.
If I'm allowed to do that here, like we have a liberty rule for our guests where you can do quarters. So if I could do quarters, I'd do 4.25.
Okay, there you go. You're fine.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like I think when we covered when we did Scream 3 for its anniversary, I was like, okay, I don't want to give it 2.5 because that feels too low.
Parker Posey. Yeah, you can't do that. You can't do that to her.
But I was like, I'll give it a weak ass 3 though. Like not like I only give it like because I didn't want to give it like 2.5 felt too low, like almost a 2.9. Because Parker Posey is like the business in that movie. She's pretty funny. I would give it a solid 4 too. I mean, I would keep it there. Like I said, all the things that we hit on, and also the conversation that we had about it, I think helps a lot. And I mean, I think it's strong. I think it's just a strong movie, and I'm glad you picked it because it's one of those movies that will be on like an anniversary list. I'm like, I know it's like we're not gonna have time as a show with Jackson or like as a main show
wait till the 30th,
and to get it done, or to get it done. Like I know I'm still trying to figure out a way to do Wonder Boys. I love that movie, and that had its anniversary today. And there's always like these movies. I'm like, there's just a lot, and it's hard to like get them all in. But that's why we have the main show, and then we have deep dives. We find a way to get them in eventually.
You gotta
yeah. But I'm really glad that you picked this one, and
thanks, man.
And also to prove that we can talk about other movies and not thrillers or horror films.
Like just horror films. Not that I'm against that.
No, and we talked about them well. We are a diverse bunch here.
Yeah.
So that helps. Before we go, tell everyone about your podcast. I know you mentioned in the beginning, but about your show.
I tried to plug it. I've tried to plug it. As I mentioned, I co-host the Review. Right now, you're probably in the midst of being available, about to be available, our episode with David Park with an E on Point Break, starring Keanu Reeves, Patrick Swayze, and You Talk, Give Me Two, Gary Busey. And I also, if anybody here, reach out to Gaius or reach out to Review X2 Podcast at Gmail, Review Pod. The Rutger Hauer movie, as we were discussing, Rutger Hauer movie, Blindside, starring Ron Silver and Rebecca De Mornay, a movie I can't seem to find, but desperately want to see. I don't know why. We release movies every other Wednesday. Basic premise of the review is we invite a guest. They bring a movie that's 7 years old or older. It's 2 hours and 22 minutes or less. It's not part of any major franchise, and they can speak about it passionately for approximately an hour and a half. And we walk in, rate it, talk about it, walk out, rate it. It's really fun, I think. And if you don't have fun with it, either Frankie says relax, or maybe because it's subjective, it's a piece of shit. I don't know. That's fine. But maybe just give it a shot. It's not bad. Just like Boiler Room.
and their show is not bad. It's actually really fun. And I'm going to be a part of it. Very soon. Finally.
Yeah, I didn't want to put you under the gun to be like, so we don't have your movie yet, but I'm clearly doing that.
No. I will have it all to you at like a responsible adult. Podcasting adult.
You got the secret list too that has some sequels and stuff because we don't normally do those.
And what's cool too is that with our there are a few you and maybe 2 other guests that we have on quite frequently. The other guests we don't really share, but you actually share the Google Doc with the movies that we want to cover. Usually when other guests when they're new, I'm like, hey, give us a movie that you want to talk about, or we'll give them one. But once you've been on a while, you get to see the list, so you get to pick it yourself. So there you go.
I just, as a guest on the guest for the guest, I was, I must have done very well.
You have, and of course, you'll probably be back on again fairly soon. I mean, I don't know. Come on, whenever you want.
You're gonna come and do ours, and then I'll come back, and
it's a lot of switching. We'll make it all work. But it was good to have you. Good to have you back, and of course, we will link their show at the bottom of the description of this episode. And we're gonna thank you for joining us for another episode of Back to the Blockbuster, where we talked about Boiler Room as a deep dive, and for its 25th anniversary. By the By the time you've heard this, you'll probably already have heard our Breakfast Club episode with Jackson. We'll be covering more news as well because there's a lot to cover. And then we're going to get ready for our anniversary episodes for March. We've only picked one officially, and that's Final Destination that we'll be doing with another
fun movie.
That we're doing with another podcast. Jackson still needs to pick his pick for March, and then we have to decide which movies we're going to let you guys pick from to narrow down for your listeners' pick. So that'll be from March. Like we had the longest fucking January, and I feel like February just went by like that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Final Destination though, fun movie.
Yeah, we were last year. We were like, oh, does it have a milestone next year? I was like, yep, it does. And there's a new one coming out too in May, so perfect.
Okay. Timing. We also have Drop Dead Gorgeous coming up. We have 7 coming up.
Love Drop Dead Gorgeous. That's a good movie.
Oh, good to know. Okay. Well,
that's a great movie.
To that episode.
That's a great movie. But yeah, a lot of good stuff coming up on Back to the Blockbuster. Again, Paul, thank you as well for joining us. And yes, we will see you again soon. Peace out.
Smell you later.